December 1926, the Waldorf-Astoria Hotel in Manhattan, a private dining room where a single meal is about to cost more than most Americans earn in a year. The centerpiece arrives on a sterling silver cart. It's called Rôti Sans Pareil, the roast without equal. 17 birds nested inside each other like a grotesque Russian doll. A warbler inside a bunting, inside a lark, inside a thrush, inside a quail, inside a lapwing, inside a plover, inside a partridge, inside a woodcock, inside a teal, inside a guinea fowl, inside a duck, inside a chicken, inside a pheasant, inside a goose, inside a turkey, inside a bustard. Each bird was stuffed, seasoned, deboned, and reassembled. The kitchen staff spent 3 days preparing it. The cost? Roughly $400. That's $7,000 in today's money. For one dish, at one dinner, 48 guests ate it. Most left half their portion on the plate. 3 miles north in Harlem, a mother waters down the soup again. 4 kids, 1 pot, not enough to go around. The wealthy didn't just eat differently in the 1920s, they ate competitively. These weren't old money families with inherited taste. These were stock market millionaires, oil barons, bootleggers who'd struck it rich during Prohibition. They had money, but no pedigree. So they bought status, one absurd meal at a time. The society hostess became the decade's most cutthroat competitor. Your reputation lived or died based on what you served. Serve salmon? Pedestrian. Serve salmon flown in from Alaska, prepared by a French chef and presented on ice sculptures? Now you're talking. Mrs. Stuyvesant Fish once served a dinner where every course came from a different country: caviar from Russia, truffles from France, venison from Scotland, pineapple from Hawaii, chocolate from Switzerland. The point wasn't taste. The point was proving you could afford to ship food across oceans for a single evening. The menus read like fever dreams. Oysters Rockefeller, named after the richest family in America, swimming in butter and herbs. Lobster Thermidor, drenched in brandy cream sauce. Peach Melba, invented for an opera singer, served in silver bowls nested in crushed ice. Baked Alaska, a cake and ice cream monstrosity set on fire at the table. Everything was excessive. Everything was imported. Everything was designed to make other wealthy people jealous. A proper dinner required 8 courses minimum. Soup, fish, entree, sorbet to cleanse the palate, roast, salad, dessert, fruit and cheese. Each course had its own silverware, its own wine, its own choreographed service. Footmen in white gloves moved in synchronized silence. You didn't ask for anything. You waited for it to appear. Speaking to the staff was considered vulgar. The waste was staggering. Kitchens prepared twice as much food as guests could possibly eat. Leftovers weren't saved, they were thrown away. The excess was the point. Abundance proved you'd made it. One Park Avenue hostess became famous for her strawberry obsession. She served them at every dinner, year-round. In January, when strawberries didn't exist naturally, she paid $50 per pint to have them shipped from California hothouses. That's $850 per pint today. She'd serve 2 pints per guest. Most people ate 3 berries and left the rest. Meanwhile, strawberries were a luxury working families saw maybe once a summer, if they were lucky. The dining room itself became theatre. Crystal chandeliers, Chinese silk wallpaper, fresh orchids from South America at every place setting. Some hostesses hired musicians to play during dinner. Others hired actors to perform between courses. This wasn't about hunger. This was about power, about showing everyone else at the table that you belonged there. August 1927. A tenement apartment on the Lower East Side. Mary Kowalski is doing math that doesn't work. Her husband brings home $23 a week from the garment factory. Rent takes $9. Coal for heat, another $2. That leaves $12 for everything else: food, clothes, medicine when the kids get sick. She has 4 children, 4 growing bodies that need feeding. The baby won't stop crying because he's hungry. She just fed him 2 hours ago, but the milk is watered down because a full quart costs 14 cents and she can't afford full strength every day. Tonight's dinner is potato soup. Again. Yesterday it was bread and lard. Tomorrow it'll be beans if she can stretch the budget. Meat happens on Sundays, and only the cheapest cuts: chicken feet, beef liver, things that cost pennies per pound because nobody else wants them. Her neighbor's kid fainted at school yesterday. The teacher said it was malnutrition. The school nurse documented it, added it to a growing list, and sent the child home. There's no treatment for being poor. Mary's apartment has one gas burner in the corner, no kitchen, no refrigeration. She buys food daily in tiny quantities because she can't store anything and can't afford bulk prices even when she has the cash. A loaf of bread costs 8 cents. She buys one loaf, it's gone by dinner. The trap is perfect. Without a real kitchen, she can't cook cheap ingredients from scratch. Without refrigeration, she can't buy in bulk. Without storage, she can't take advantage of sales. The poverty itself makes everything more expensive. Working mothers face impossible choices. Spend time cooking to save money or work extra hours to earn money. Either way, someone goes without. Usually, the kids. Teachers across the city report the same thing. Students falling asleep at desks, too hungry to concentrate, too weak to play. Growing bodies getting nothing but starch and water. The numbers are brutal. A pound of hamburger costs 25 cents. A quart of milk, 14 cents. A dozen eggs, 47 cents. A chicken, if you can afford it, runs 65 cents. Mary's $12 weekly food budget has to cover 4 kids and 2 adults. Do that math. It doesn't work. Out in farm country, it's worse. The agricultural depression hit in 1921 and never ended. Crop prices collapsed. Farmers who'd bought land during the war boom couldn't make payments. Foreclosures swept through rural America like a plague. The families who held on did so by cutting everything. The diet narrowed to what you could grow. Potatoes, beans, corn, canned tomatoes if you were lucky. Meat maybe once a week, and then only what you could hunt or raise yourself. Farm kids went to school with nothing in their lunch pails. Teachers started keeping crackers in their desks for students who couldn't stay awake. By 1928, charitable organizations tried to fill the gap. Settlement houses opened soup kitchens. Churches organized food pantries. Cities set up breadlines. The breadlines were the worst. Men who'd worked their entire lives standing in line for free soup, faces burning with shame. Women who'd always provided for their families now begging for day-old bread. The psychological weight crushed people in ways hunger alone didn't. You weren't just poor. You were publicly, visibly poor. Everyone could see you'd failed. And the charity came with judgment. Social workers investigated whether you deserved help. They asked invasive questions, inspected your home, questioned your choices, decided if you were worthy, poor, or just lazy. You had to prove your hunger was legitimate, prove you weren't drinking away your wages, prove you were trying hard enough. The humiliation became its own kind of poverty. Meanwhile, 3 miles south, someone's throwing away half a 17-bird roast. The newspapers sold 2 completely different Americas. Open to the society pages and you'd find breathless coverage of Mrs. Vanderbilt's latest dinner party. The menu described in lavish detail. The guest list, the table decorations, the imported flowers, every excess celebrated as achievement. These pages sold a fantasy. That prosperity was universal, that everyone was invited to the feast, that this was what American success looked like. Turn a few pages and you'd find grimmer realities, factory closures, farm foreclosures, charity drive advertisements. But these stories never shared space with the society coverage. The 2 Americas existed in separate sections, never acknowledging each other. The media knew what it was doing. The wealthy bought advertising. The poor just bought newspapers. Guess which story got better placement? Prohibition created yet another tier of exclusive consumption. Speakeasies weren't just about illegal alcohol. They became temples of expensive transgression. The best clubs served elaborate meals alongside bootleg champagne. A dinner at the 21 Club could cost $50 per person. That's $850 today. The password got you in the door. The price tag kept out everyone else. The ritual of drinking illegally added excitement the rich craved. It wasn't enough to drink champagne. You had to drink it while breaking the law, knowing the police wouldn't raid a club where judges and politicians drank alongside you. For working families, prohibition meant something different. It meant the neighborhood saloon closed. The one place a factory worker could buy a beer after a 12-hour shift. It meant homebrewed alcohol that sometimes poisoned people. It meant one more way the law protected the comfortable while punishing the poor. The food industry saw opportunity in this divided market. Processed foods emerged as a middle ground. Canned soups, boxed cereals, packaged crackers. The advertising promised these products made you sophisticated, modern, almost wealthy. The reality was different. Processed foods cost more per ounce than raw ingredients, but less than restaurant meals. They occupied a strange space, too expensive for the truly poor, too common for the truly rich. The aspirational middle class bought them anyway, affordable symbols of status, proof you weren't at the bottom even if you weren't at the top. Consider sugar. Cuban plantations produced it. American refineries processed it. From there, it traveled two directions. One path led to Park Avenue kitchens, where pastry chefs sculpted it into elaborate desserts. The other led to tenement tables, where it stretched cheap coffee and made stale bread slightly more palatable. The same commodity, the same molecular structure. But the distance between those two tables measured everything that mattered about American life. The message from every direction was the same. Prosperity is here, you just need to work harder to reach it. The reality? Half the country couldn't afford dinner, but admitting that would ruin the party. The warning signs appeared early. Nobody with power wanted to see them. Farm foreclosures accelerated through 1928 and into 1929. Rural banks failed at an alarming rate, taking depositors' savings with them. These weren't front-page stories in major newspapers. They were local tragedies, easy to ignore from Park Avenue penthouses. The extreme disparity wasn't just morally grotesque, it was economically suicidal. When half the population can barely afford food, they can't buy anything else. Factory output depended on consumer spending. But consumers without money don't consume. The math was simple. The wealthy ignored it. They filled that gap with speculation and debt. Stock purchases on margin, real estate bought with borrowed money, corporate expansion funded by increasingly creative accounting. The appearance of prosperity mattered more than actual profit. This culture of speculation infected everything, including how the elite ate. Restaurants extended credit to society figures. Caterers accepted payment plans for elaborate parties. The performance couldn't stop, even when the money behind it became increasingly fictional. Working families had no such cushion, no credit, no margin, no safety net. When factories cut hours, paychecks shrank immediately. When prices rose, budgets broke. There was no room for error, no time to adjust. The feast was ending. The working class would feel it first. They always did. October 1929 hit like a hammer. The market collapsed. The millionaires who'd eaten 17 bird roasts suddenly couldn't pay their staff. But here's the thing. Working families had been living through a depression since 1921. For them, the crash just made everyone else finally notice. The bill came due. And what happened next makes this look tame. Breadlines stretched for blocks. Families lost everything. Make sure to subscribe to Untold 20s so you don't miss out on any future videos.